Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and today I have incredible good news. To start off the news today, well, before I start, I'll explain to everyone how the stream goes. If you're new to the chat, welcome. If you're new to the stream, welcome. If you would like to keep up to date with the news, make sure to subscribe. I make sure to come out with a stream at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every day discussing the developments in Ukraine. But saying that, we will be starting near Kiev. We'll be moving clockwise around the country to the southern fronts near Mykolaiv and Odessa. And after that, I'll be taking as many questions as possible. But you may notice today that the title of this video is that the Ukrainians have broken the siege, and that is why I've made, that's why I got a new intro video. Also, the link is in the description to the guy who made that intro video. I want to give him a lot of credit, because that was extremely patriotic. I loved it. It was very, very high energy. I really liked it. So make sure to go click the link below in the description and go subscribe to him, because he deserves a lot of subscribers for that video. It was a very good one. Anyways, the Ukrainians have broke the siege of Kiev. They have busted open an area through the Russian front lines around Bucha and Irpin that has completely opened up Kiev on the western side. Now the Russians have been disconnected at Vasilikiv, and they're now in a pocket of their own. We'll see how long this holds. I'm not really sure how long it will hold. I'm not sure if this is just something that has happened. But to show y'all that this is in fact what has indeed happened, here is the video of the Ukrainians raising the flag over Bucha.
Місто Буча, 3 березня 22-го року. Піднімаємо український прапор над містом. Слава Україні!
As you can see, the army has retaken Bucha, and therefore the siege has been broken on the western side of Kiev. Also, due to some extra information I got overnight, I found out that there were only breakthrough convoys that made it to Troishina and the southeastern side of the city, and so therefore those sides of the city are also not under siege, and therefore the city of Kiev is under siege in a way, but they're not actually under siege in the correct term, as in the city is entirely encircled by an enemy army. They actually have an opening on the west and eastern side now, so Kiev is in a much better situation and has a lot more breathing room than they did over the past few days, when we had gotten a lot of info from the mayor and the president of Ukraine and the mayor of Kiev. Let me make sure I clarify that, where they stated that the city had been entirely encircled. Apparently that's not the case anymore, especially with this large breakthrough around Bucha and Irpin. So it is good news, because the Ukrainians are going to hang on to Kiev for a good while longer. Meanwhile, near the city of Borodyanka, there's been a lot of pictures of the aftermath of shelling. It appears that the Russians are starting to ramp up the artillery barrages a lot more, and it's causing a lot of extensive damage, and I'm sure that, unfortunately, it's causing a lot of untold civilian casualties. But I'll show you all the videos and pictures I have of the damage in Bucha, because it's rather severe. the damage is quite extensive, as you can see in the film. We also have another bit of film I'll show y'all real quick. It shows drone footage from the air of the damage at Bucha, and I'll just show y'all that. It speaks for itself in a way. I'll cut that short because I'm sure y'all got the picture. But war is terrible business, and I was wondering ever since the beginning of this invasion how the Russians were being so reserved in their indiscriminate fire towards any kind of building in a city, because that's not the usual Russian tactic. If you look through history, like in Afghanistan, they'd level entire villages. In Chechnya, they would level the entirety of Grozny during the course of those wars. And so it was really shocking to me at the outset of this war that the Russians weren't using their usual tactics of just indiscriminately firing on everything where an enemy may be and killing anything that stands in their way and just calling civilians collateral. And it appears that they've finally gotten to the point where they've stopped trying to have the pretext of looking like a modern army that can actually avoid civilian casualties, and they've gone back to their Soviet roots in terms of their doctrine, and now they're just going back to large artillery barrages to try and uproot the enemy. It's a terrible thing. It's a very terrible thing, but you do have to remember that it's rooted deeply inside of their strategy, and that this is what most Soviet countries at the time, if we would have seen a massive war in Europe during the Cold War, that's what they would have done, is that they would have just rolled over all of Europe, just leveling every single city, because this is this kind of total war doctrine that they had in the idea that they were going to go to war with NATO and the United States, but they've never really developed it after the Cold War, when the wars have changed a lot, and so they're still running off of that kind of grand war strategy where they just level everything. So it's really messed up these days, especially considering that it's artillery based, and that means that they're actually targeting these residential areas and just bombarding them with massive artillery barrages until they see some substantial damage. Regardless of that, that's all I really have to say. That it's really terrible that this sort of stuff is happening. But moving on, we're going to go to more good news, and that is that we see that the 40-mile convoy is probably going to become what screws Russia over in trying to take Kiev. This 40-mile convoy has blocked the main road heading to Kiev from Belarus that they control, the P-02. And what this has done is that it's created traffic jams, so the logistical problems are even worse now than they were before, when we saw that Russians had almost nothing to eat and were giving up because they run out of fuel and food. And now they're just sitting there and they're screwing everything over with this 40-mile long convoy that still has not moved over 3 days. And so now the Ukrainians are starting to pick this thing off before it can even move again. And so I don't know how much they have destroyed of this 40-mile convoy, but I've heard it's been a decent amount. So we'll keep on looking into that as it goes, and we'll see if if they somehow destroy most of the convoy, if not all of it, or if the Ukrainians are repelled and the convoy actually gets resupplied in about a year or so and starts moving again. We'll just have to see as information comes out. Meanwhile, down near the city of Bucha and Irpin, to get back to some of the good news and the bad news, there's been a video that came out today that showed, for some of y'all this will be very bad news, that the Antonov 225 has been destroyed. You can see it in this video. Hopefully if it loads. Yes, it will load. That yellow nose cone over there is actually the Antonov 225. You can still see the wings left, but a shell went through the top of this like open air hangar, hit the aircraft, and it caught on fire and burned on the spot. So in that regard, that's a terrible loss for Ukraine, because that was a symbol of their nation pretty much in terms of aviation, is that they built the largest aircraft that ever flew So that's a terrible loss for them. But I'm really more focused on human losses. But nonetheless, that's still a very bad loss for Ukraine. So, anyways, we will move on to the rest of the news around Bucha and Irpin. We've seen some more pictures come out of Bucha of the destruction in the area. Someone was saying that some pro-Russians are saying that only cars are getting run over near Bucha, but in fact, it's just entire Russian convoys getting obliterated. And these are the pictures of that aftermath. We see this looks like a BDRM. Burning apartment. We saw that several days ago. That's actually a picture that's several days old at this point. And that one is as well. Most of the pictures of these buildings burning are actually several days old at this point, but the vehicles being destroyed are somewhat new because I haven't seen most of these except for maybe this first picture. I think I saw that about 2 days ago. So most of them are pretty relevant and new as far as I'm able to know. Anyways, moving on to the rest of the news in Bucha, we can see that there was a large fire in the area of Bucha today as a large pillar of smoke came billowing up from it. I'll show you all the video. I'm not really sure what it's from, so I really can't say what the cause of it is. But we do know that there was a large pillar of smoke coming out of Bucha today from some kind of fire.
Оно уходит туда, куда-то вверх, все в облачность, но это... Да.
So I don't know. Once again, I have to reiterate this again because I can't say this enough. Anything I say about this sort of stuff is speculation as to what it is because I don't have any information to confirm what that is. But it looked like it was some kind of fuel silo, perhaps, that the Russians have hit to try and start hampering the Ukrainian logistics a little bit further. But I'm not really sure about that. That's entirely speculation on my part, so take that with a grain of salt. Also, we've seen more Russian VDV APCs that were destroyed around Irpin. They appear to be BMD-4s, but I'll just show you all the video and let you all see it for yourselves.
Короче, только что вручную разъебашили колонну. 4 коробки, блядь, встретили. Пока держимся.
It's a very good thing that the Ukrainians still are managing to hold off and even push back the Russians around Kiev now, as the evidence from today shows. So I just have to say that that's something really impressive. Now, before I move on to the next bit of news, I have to cover some news that happened on the front today, as the second round of talks started and ended today. So the Russians agreed, and the Ukrainians made a settlement with the Russians that civilians would not be fired on when escaping. So that being said, the link is in the link is in this little tag here if y'all want to access the map on the Discord server and read more about it. That's the news article I got that from. But now that I've covered that, I can go down here and show you that Ukrainians have evacuated around 4,000 civilians from the area of Bucha and Irpin. So I'll show you all that right now.
Тримаю. Іди до мене. Як тебе звати?
Маленька, все добре, не переживай, все хорошо. Зараз мама прийде.
Іди до дядька. Дивися.
Обережно.
Руку.
Все, не бійтесь, ви під охороною.
Вот, мене завели допомогу. Можеш подойти на контору?
Ну, привіт, козаче.
Привіт. Скільки тобі років?
10.
Все нормально,
Давай.
не бійся, все буде добре.
Давай лапу. Давай.
Давай.
Давай, давай. Руку. Руку.
Тихо, тихо.
Тримаю. Обережно.
Потихеньку, потихеньку.
Не поспішаємо. Обережно.
So as you can see, they're actually evacuating them in an orderly manner. I'm not sure if the ceasefire they talked about was some kind of temporary ceasefire in this specific area to evacuate civilians, because you can notice that there was no gunfire heard in the background, and this area is within Bucha and Irpin that was in the video. So I don't know if the ceasefire meant that they were going to hold fire for a few hours so that way they could announce to the civilians that they would evacuate them and get them out. But I'm not really sure about any of that. That's entirely speculation, but I do know that the Russians agreed to allow the Ukrainians to evacuate as many civilians as they could from the area. So moving on from that, more big news has come out today after the defenders of Kiev broke the siege, and that's that a Russian Major General, Andrei Sukovnetsky, was killed today by a Ukrainian sharpshooter. This is probably, this is, as a matter of fact, the highest ranking official on either side that has been killed during this war. It has not been confirmed by Russian sources at the moment, but several Ukrainian and Russian news sources started to report about his death, and that was promptly followed by some of his closest colleagues giving their condolences to his death. And so, considering that his colleagues came out and gave their condolences that he had died, it's safe to assume that he is probably dead at this point. So that's great news for the Ukrainians, probably a massive morale hit for the Russians, because having a major general killed is way up there. That's getting close to, like, command level, they're talking to Putin almost on a daily basis kind of rank. So in that news, that's very good. So moving on towards the center of Kiev, there has been a lot of developments in the center of Kiev today. Most of the fighting, according to the video evidence, has been around Bucha and Irpin. But nonetheless, we've seen that there was an intense bombardment of Kiev just several hours ago in the nighttime. I'll show you all that video right now. As you could hear, the bombardment was very intense, and that's starting to back up that the Russians have tried to back off this pretense that there's some kind of modern army that can avoid civilian casualties, and now they're just going all out, and they're going to go back to their normal battle tactics that they've had since Soviet times, which is to just start massive artillery bombardments on an area that you're about to launch an offensive into. That also still falls into the armor wave kind of strategy that they've been doing this entire war, just sending large amounts of armor into areas and hoping that fixes the problem, like for example the 40-mile convoy. But now they're not trying to have a hybrid of modern and old tactics. Now they're just going with entirely old tactics, attacking civilians directly for the most part, except for that one ceasefire that occurred today. So in that news, it's not going to be good for Ukrainian civilians. So if there are still civilians in the area of Kyiv and there's a way out for you today and you were watching this stream, I would highly suggest that any civilians that are not willing to fight would leave tonight or in the morning tomorrow if it's still safe and possible, because it appears that the Russians are going to start really coming on down with the firepower at this point. So anyways, the remains of an Iskander missile were seen on the road today as it had been shot down over Kyiv the night before during the middle of my night 7 stream, and we can see the pictures of the remnants of that Iskander missile here. So you can see the Ukrainian air defense, the Ukrainian ground anti-air is still doing their job around Kyiv because they're shooting down missiles, which is a very good thing for the defenders of Kyiv. Now, before I move on to Chernihiv, because there's been a couple of developments in Chernihiv today, and I'd also like to answer as many questions as possible, I'm going to answer some questions. So, let me scroll up a bit. Oh, there's been a decent bit. Welcome to the chat. And by the way, if you're kind of scared to ask a question, please do ask the questions. Because I like to answer as many questions as possible, and I'd love to have a lot of questions to work with. So please ask away if you have any questions. I'll try and answer them to the best of my abilities. And if I don't have an answer for you, I'll try and guide you to a place that may give you an answer, or I may pull it up on stream. Anyways, let's see. Pavel's here. Pavel is here. Pavel is currently in Ukraine. He's actually a member of the Foreign Legion, I believe. So he finally got his weapon about 2 days ago, and he went to the front, and he gave us a little bit of news. But sadly, I don't think he's on the Discord, because I'd love for him to share some of his pictures and videos that he's taken with us. So anyways, I'm glad that Pavel is safe and he's still watching the stream. I hope your friends in the territorial defense units are watching this, and I hope that the Ukrainian army is watching this as well, and hopefully they're getting some good information out of this that they may have not known about the rest of the fronts, and perhaps even some good news, such as the breaking of the siege in Kiev today, according to my information. Let's see. Thank you for your in-depth reporting on this crisis. Oh, no problem at all. I do this every day. I just find it as a service at this point to my friends that I have in Ukraine, to make sure that I can give them some up-to-date news that they can watch, because news is, from what I've heard from them, kind of hard to come by in Ukraine. They kind of give like the general overview, but they don't really say anything specific on the news in Ukraine. So I'm trying to give everyone as much information as I can possibly find. Russians shelling nuclear power plant, it's on fire. Okay, I've heard a lot about that, and I actually saw that before I came on here, and so I started to research a lot into it. And so in the sense of this being almost an emergency with a nuclear power plant being fired on, I will move to that news immediately, and we'll go down here to Enerhodar, and we'll start talking about all of the developments down here right away. So the evening hours near Endahar were showing that there was a lot of ground fire coming from the Russian side. I'll show you all this right now. So this suggested that the Russians were starting to get rather close to the nuclear power plant as the night was going on. We can also see that earlier in the day, before the firefight began, the civilians that were out on the road the other day have apparently been pushed off the road. They made as heroic a stand as possible, but apparently they couldn't just stand up to Russian armor. Maybe some of them got shot and killed. I'm not really sure. I don't have any information about that to say anything either way. But apparently they had to rout, and they caught some kind of tire pit on fire or something around the road. But anyways, here's the video of that.
Танк. Це був танк.
So I'll skip through this video a little bit, because it's a rather long one.
Бережи нас, Господь.
And so you can see that the civilians are kind of rallying around trying to make some kind of defense with the blockades of the trucks, the fire, all sorts of things. But nonetheless, it didn't work, as we saw the evening firefight. And then finally, on security camera, which a person inside of my Discord server told me about, and I thank you so much for it, because I actually found footage of that security camera, and I'll show that to y'all right now. It was streaming live. It's a very grainy footage, but it should show you that there was a firefight going on around the administrative building at the power plant. There was also another video. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it put on stream because it seemed to have some kind of copyrighted music over it or something like that. But it showed that they fired an ATGM at the administrative building, which then promptly caught on fire. I do not know. There is a fire near let me make sure I get the name right. Enerhodar. I was typing it down as Energodar for some reason earlier. But nonetheless, I'll show you all the other footage of the large fire. This is from a distance away, but it's at the same time of day that we saw the other video where the guy was within the trucks and he was right up on the fire behind the blockade. But this is another view from a distance away.
Фотки сделают и в город зайдут. Так что дома сидеть, никуда не выходить и все. Все, давай.
Энергодар. Атомная.
So now that we've covered what happened during the day, the evening, and the night on the security camera footage, what we've gotten in total from all this information at the moment, according to a lot of mainstream news outlets, is that there has apparently now been a fire on the nuclear reactors themselves. And if you do not know where those are, I'm going to outline those for you real quick. They're in this area. Oh, sorry, that's a pinpoint. Let me make sure I get rid of that. And let me draw up this line. There's about 6 of them, and they're in a straight line, and they're all in this area right here. And so we'll save that as the power plant. And we will fill that in with yellow. Not that there's really any meaning to this color right now, I'm just using this to explain. And so that's where all the reactors are. All 6 of them are in a line right here. I pulled all this up on Google Maps because I was really getting interested if we were about to have a very severe nuclear event on our hands, some kind of meltdown or something. But from what I've heard, one of these reactors may have been hit and there's a fire going on around the reactor. So at the moment, the last I checked, this may have changed over the last 20 minutes or so the stream has been going on, but I did not hear anything about radiation levels rising in the area, so that suggests that the reactor hasn't been hit critically and it's not having some kind of meltdown or anything like that, or its containment walls have been breached. It suggests, though, that it has been hit and it is on fire, but we don't know how severe it is at the moment, and hopefully it will not be too severe, because if it is, some analysts were saying that this may be much worse than a Chernobyl-like situation due to the scale of the matter that's going on right now, with it being a war and all. So there are currently firefighters on the scene dealing with it, but we do not know at the moment the actual status of the reactors. We do not know if they were shut down beforehand, because we had heard a lot. I had actually read a lot about these reactors across the entire country. There's around 15 of them, and 6 of them are at this one power plant. And it seems like they shut down most of the nuclear reactors as soon as the war began, but I don't know if that applies to this power plant as well. So I don't know if the reactors are still active at the moment. They may not be. Most of them may have been deactivated, and one of them that's having the fire was one of the deactivated reactors. But all that speculation, I'm not entirely sure. All the information we have to go with at the moment is that there is one of the reactors, and there's a fire on it or near it or getting to it. That's all we know. The Ukrainians are demanding for a ceasefire, so that way this doesn't get out of hand, and they can create some kind of security zone around the reactors and have firefighters come in and immediately deal with all the issues. I believe there are firefighters already there, as I stated earlier. So I believe that the situation may be getting a little under control, but we don't really know, and I don't really want to say anything for sure because that could change instantly. So we're just going to wait until tomorrow and see if we get any more news about the reactors and see if anything else has happened to them that's not really good. So anyways, just for everyone to know, this little yellow area is exactly where the reactors are. And the Russians have slowly been encroaching up this road into the reactor power plant, and kind of like the secret city, you know, that the Soviets used to kind of have earlier today, and now they are at the power plant at the moment. So I hope that answers your questions. If y'all all have a lot of questions about the nuclear reactor, because that is very concerning that a nuclear reactor has been hit and there's a fire going on around it. That's a very serious issue. So hopefully everything is under more control than we're expecting. So let's move on to the next questions. Hey, welcome back for day 8, broski, at the Enforcer. Thank you so much. Are there rumors that Russia will invade Moldova? How will the West and its allies react to this? I don't know the situation with Moldova probably not being a NATO. It's probably not a NATO member, considering it's got Transnistria in it. So I don't really know about that. And I think you may be talking. I don't really know of a country called Moldavia. I think you just spelled Moldova and mistyped it a little bit. But I'm not really sure. I haven't really heard anything about that or any developments. So I can't really attest to anything about Moldova at the moment. Let's see, what else do we have? Remember to like, guys. Yes, if y'all like, the news gets out to more people, and if y'all believe that I'm reporting accurate news, and you think that more people should be hearing this news, make sure to like it, because it will get out to more people. Russians selling Zaporizhia MPP, it's on fire. Yes, I already covered that. Hopefully I got as much information out as possible. Maybe I got a little bit of extra info out. Because I tried to read as much as possible about nuclear reactor safety. Another thing that I did not mention a second ago is that reactor walls are usually built about 5 feet thick, and they have something like a foot like a foot thick plate of steel throughout the entire reinforced concrete like containment walls. So it is a rather strong structure, but it's not really strong. It's really made for an accidental plane crash, and it's not made for constant artillery bombardments. So we'll see what happens with that as time goes on, and I hope that nothing comes out of that, because if it does, usually if you have a sea below something, the wind blows north, kind of like it did at Chernobyl, how all the radiation blew north into Belarus and up towards Sweden. So if this thing does have some kind of meltdown, this is going to float north, and it's probably going to follow straight up the Dnieper River, poison the entire water supply for most of Ukraine, and then go straight up to Kiev and give radiation poisoning to millions that are still there. So that's not good news at all. Enforcer, best war correspondent. Well, thank you very much. Pavel, I'm sorry for misspelling your name. Been watching the news, and it just has me so nervous. I'm praying. Well, it is nerve-wracking for a war to be going on, but I wouldn't be too nervous because the Ukrainians appear to still have the situation under control. They're even launching offensives in some areas, and as long as this nuclear reactor situation does not become severe, everything will mostly be fine in Ukraine still, and the situation will have remained unchanged. So, in that sense, don't be too worried. I hope that ails your worries a little bit. So, anyways, we'll move on to the next question. Let's see. In reality, it wasn't besieged before anyway. The Russians lack the numbers to lay siege. Well, they actually have some large numbers, and from what the reports had been coming out for the past few days before that, there was a firefight at Tet 6 and in the suburbs of Troshina, and then there was also a firefight in the southeastern side of the city, although there was never really an actual report as to specifically where, but there was a report of that. And then the Russians claimed control over this western gateway into the city, this exact spot right here on the E40 and M07. And so, on top of that, finally, the last thing that broke the camel's back was the paratroopers that were dropped near Vasilkiv, and that made the mayor of Kiev, as well as the president, make very clear statements that the city was entirely surrounded and under siege, and that there was no way for civilians to get out. And so while it was not true for the eastern side, actually those were breakthrough convoys that came through, fought for the power plant, and then one of them came through and fought in the southeastern side of the city for a little bit and apparently retreated or got destroyed. I didn't have any information to confirm either way, but apparently those two fights alone made the Ukrainian government think for several days that this eastern side was entirely encircled as well. And so I put that down on my map as that Kiev had been encircled for several days entirely and was under an actual state of siege. But it appears that that has changed on the eastern side, and now it's changed on the western side as the Ukrainians have broken through and created an opening on the western side of Kiev and pretty much broken the siege as far as that side of the city goes, which is great news for them. So anyways, I'll move on to the next question. Putin's hands are full of blood. Yes, they are. That's very true. Have you heard of a nuclear power plant that's on fire in eastern middle Ukraine? Yes, I just covered that a little bit. Putin is marked target. 1 million bounty on him now by a Russian billionaire, dead or alive. Whoever can collect on that bounty is going to have a lot of balls because Putin's protected very well. He's almost always protected everywhere he goes, and also he's an ex-KGB agent, so he kind of knows some of the tricks that agents pull to try and kill people. Like that one time, if you ever seen that video that two guys were plotting to assassinate Putin during some sort of event in Russia, and they were on the Lenin Mausoleum, and they offered him some jelly beans, and the jelly beans were poisoned, and Putin knew that they were poisoned, so he refused them. If you ever seen anything like that, he's pretty smart about what people will try and do to kill him, so he avoids it pretty well. I wouldn't want to be Putin. Me either. Let's see, I hope it's not 1 million rubles. Oh, yeah, if it's 1 million rubles, it's like $100 at this point. Maybe even like $5. Just like a payday bar at the gas station. Largest nuclear power plant in Europe. That's true. It is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe that has been hit and has a fire going on around it at the moment. Do you have any info on the Russian-born Google employee that is marking Russian tank locations on Google? Are the Ukrainians using this information? I haven't heard about that, actually. That's news to me. So if there is a map around, I don't know if the Ukrainians are using it, and I didn't even know it existed until now. So if you could join the Discord, and send me a link to that, I would be very appreciative, because I too would like to see that map if it's out there in the public somewhere. But if it's not, then I understand it's probably confidential information to a point, so that way the Russians don't know which tanks are being tracked and which tanks aren't. But I don't really think they need to do that anyways, because usually satellites fly over Ukraine every few minutes or so from multiple different countries, and they usually get very solid satellite footage of most Russian locations at this moment. But the problem is that they aren't reporting that truthfully to the public where they're seeing Russian vehicles. So, my map is still an approximation of where Russian units are at the moment, and it's not entirely true. It's just going off of all the documented information I've had for the past week and this day, and that's how the front lines have developed on my map. So hopefully they're accurate. I believe they are as accurate as possible. But anyways, I'll answer one more question, and we'll finally move on to Chernihiv. They are afraid to approach due to anti-tank weapons, and they aren't stalled. They are thinking. Well, according to the Department of Defense, they've run out of supplies, and I would tend to believe, because the Russian supply line issue has been terrible this entire time, I would tend to believe the Department of Defense in saying that, because adding a 40-mile long convoy to all of the supply issues you currently have is definitely not going to help them out at all. Because if the Russians were doing well with the logistical side of things, if you're seeing my point here, because maybe it has no merit, maybe it does, but if the Russians were doing well on the logistical side of things north of Kiev, they wouldn't be abandoning vehicles that are just empty of gas, but they're entirely in running condition besides that. So that suggests that they're out of a lot of logistical supplies up there. Their logistical lines are falling apart, and then adding a 40-mile long convoy to that adds a whole bunch of extra gas that has to be delivered to these vehicles, and food for the soldiers that are operating them, and parts, because these all these vehicles will eventually break down at some point. And so you're adding all this stress to the logistical chain with this giant 40-mile long convoy. And then to add to that, they're taking up most of the road, if not all of the road. So the logistical trucks are having to go off-road, and then they might get bogged down in this mud that's been created during the last day's rain. And so the situation just gets worse and worse for them because of this 40-mile long convoy. And so while it is a nice idea to think that Russia is a superpower and they're actually just sitting them there to plan out what they're doing, it's not a smart idea if they are actually doing that, because it's currently being destroyed at the moment by the Ukrainians while it's just sitting there doing nothing. So, at this point, even if they didn't really have a hardcore, then again, when you think about it that way, why in the world would the Russians just move a 40-mile convoy in and then have it sit in enemy territory where it can be attacked easily, and then think up a plan? Why wouldn't they think up a plan while it's still in Belarus and then have it execute the plan? So, that all suggests, including with the DoD report, that thing is in fact out of supplies and it's just sitting there like a long snake waiting for it to be chopped up into pieces. So, that being said, we're going to move on to Chernihiv now. We have some video of a Russian convoy being abandoned. It looks like it was mostly intact and they just pulled it out into a field and left it there. And y'all just gotta see this. It's tons of vehicles.
Осипенко, объездная. Колонна. Ну, я не знаю, сколько они тут кучкой стоят. Кучканулись. Это до хера, блядь.
And that tells me once again that the logistical situation is bad, because when you just have to pull a whole bunch of vehicles out into a farm field and leave them there, that's a bad sign. That's a very bad sign. That says, and most of those were just normal trucks, and so that's telling you that the logistical situation is so bad they can't even keep the logistical trucks running. They just get there and they just starve themselves of fuel, and they can't refuel anything, and so they just drop them off in the middle of nowhere. And so that's kind of reaffirming my point. And it's, I would say that's mostly speculation, but that's been backed up now by most reports. Even the British Ministry of Defense, the American Department of Defense, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, although they may be propaganda-based saying that, but nonetheless, they've been stating mostly true information this entire war. And a couple of other nations that have been saying this stuff has to back up the idea that the logistics are bad, because I've been saying that for days, and there's been a lot of proof to back that up, and that all these vehicles are being abandoned of different kinds in perfect running order tells you that they're running out of supplies to operate these vehicles, and Russians are abandoning their positions to go and try and find food just so that way they don't start starving. So anyways, moving on to Chernihiv, there's not really been a lot of reports of battle. There's been a lot of reports of artillery bombardments and damage. So I'll just go through this and show it to y'all and give y'all a brief description. This video right here is some rocket fire in Chernihiv. It's rather strong rocket barrage. You know, if there's such a difference in between a weak rocket barrage and a strong one, this one would appear to be a strong one. So I'll just show it to y'all.
Пиздец. И это они, блядь, не бомбят дома жилые? Это пиздец.
I'm glad that they all got out of that safe. There's a whole load of people down there that just ran out of that explosion.
Это пиздец.
I didn't actually notice the crowd of people the first time I watched that video, but once that rocket blew up, it just looked like there was like 12 people who just walked out from under that explosion perfectly fine. And I'm very glad that they got out of that safe, honestly, but that was crazy. I don't know how they all survived being that close to that kind of explosion, and then they just walk away from it. I don't know if they were injured or not. Of course, the video wasn't that close to see anything like that, but from a distance, they all looked okay, and that was very lucky for all those people. Anyways, we'll move on to a pictures and videos of the damage in Chernihiv. You can see this one. It is almost looking like Stalingrad at this point with the amount of damage the Russians are inflicting through artillery bombardments. Also notice that's a residential area.
Вот вам. Что происходит? Что мне показывают по новостям?
Also, another thing I'd like to point out is that in Kiev, there was a lot of attention to a building that got hit by a missile. It also appears that this building has been hit by either a missile, a rocket, or some kind of bomb, because there's a large hole in the side. And so, assuming that there are still civilians in these buildings, apparently there has probably been a lot of casualties due to the indiscriminate bombing of civilian targets. So anyways, I'll just show you all the rest of the video.
Что мне показывают по новостям? Россияне.
So the damage is rather severe. We'll move on to the next video. We have more video evidence of massive damage in Chernihiv. Actually, this one's the video. It's from the same area, but from a different perspective. And as you can see, the damage is very severe. On top of that, if you want to access the Day 7 map, that's still on the Discord server, but I've moved on to a new week with the map that's on stream. And so this one will develop all the dots and so on that and markers that they all have. But the last one will show you the extent of damage that Chernihiv had already received, and now it's receiving even more damage. So that's not really good for Chernihiv. But the Ukrainian the Ukrainian defenders are still holding strong, and they're still holding the city. So although the damage is bad, the Ukrainian spirit is not broken, and that's one thing that must be remembered, is that while the damage looks severe and things may look dire, the defenders are still holding on, and that's all that matters in a war, is that the defenders still hold, and the defenders still believe in what they're fighting for. And the Ukrainian defenders have a lot to fight for, and so I don't ever think they will stop fighting as long as they have breath in their bodies. And that's a very good thing for Ukraine, because if they gave up, they wouldn't exist anymore. And so that's a very good thing that they keep on fighting in Chernihiv. I have to say that I commend them a lot, because these people are heroes. You don't see heroes like this in the modern world much, because one, there's either not a chance for them to be a hero, or two, people just there aren't a lot of heroes around. Anyways, we'll move on. There was a fuel silo hit near Chernihiv today. The black plumes of smoke that came up front were rather large, and it appears that it is another attempt to destroy the Ukrainian fuel supplies. Anyways, I'll just show you all the video. As you can see, it's the same kind of thick black smoke we saw in Bucha when I showed y'all Kiev earlier in the stream. So I believe that both of these have been fuel silos that have been hit by the Russians in the past few days. And you know, I don't mean to be on that pollution side of things, because there's more important things going on in war than pollution. but you know that this oil isn't just burning into the atmosphere, it's seeping out into the land, and it's going to make it infertile and toxic. And I'm not like a green person, I mean, like, I don't like pollution, but I'm not like into making everything electric and all. But it's terrible to see that such environmental damage is going to happen to Ukraine, because once this war is over, they're going to have to find some way to clean up the land around these fuel silos to make it reusable again for something. Because even if they don't grow anything on it, if they build a new building in that area, there could be massive health effects on people just in that area. So it's going to be a major concern that they'll have to deal with after the war, and I just hope that it doesn't become too severe for them. Anyways, I'm going to move on to Sumi now. There's 4 points at Sumi, and before I get to Kharkiv, I'll start answering some more questions. So at Sumi today, we've seen that there is more destroyed armor. Last week there was loads of destroyed armor, but we've seen even more of it. So this may have been on the 2nd of March, but the pictures came out today, so they're going under today's stream. But anyways, I'll show you all the pictures of the destroyed vehicles. You can see an entire gun, tank cannon just laying out in the field. That suggests that the whole entire tank got blown into pieces. But anyways, there's the interior of a tank. There's the one of the tanks with the turret flipped over. It appears that it may have been a kind of T-72 or T-80. I can't really tell because the Contact 5 armor is gone, and it also has the ERA plates on the turret, but I can't really tell what kind of tank it would have been. We can see there's a T-80U right here. So maybe the other tank was a T-80U, but all the rubber stuff had been burned off of the tank, which makes it kind of hard for me to tell. That looks like it may have been a T-72B3 due to the grenade discharger, the smoke grenade discharger on the side of the turret. And then we have some ammunition, and it appears that that's a BMP-2 turret and a destroyed BMP-2. So the Ukrainians have been still inflicting casualties at a great rate across the entire front. And so that's across the entire war. So that's still a great thing. We can see that the Ukrainians are not running out of ammunition. And that also suggests that the city of Sumi is not surrounded, because it appears that they haven't run out of ammo, and the rate of Russian tanks being destroyed has not slowed. This has almost stayed consistent over several days, and at least in picture evidence that Russian vehicles keep on getting destroyed at a high rate around Sumi. Anyways, moving on, we can see that a farmer is getting a new addition to his farming equipment with a mine clearer. And when I say farming equipment, this one may actually be literal, because this is a Russian UR-77, which is used for mine clearing, and they use these things called line charges, which kind of like have an explosive charge that propels them upwards and forwards, and they lay down in front of the tank across the ground for like several hundred yards, and they explode. And the tactic behind that is that when these little line charges explode, they blow up all the mines in this area, and so it makes a safe path for tanks and vehicles to travel down. But anyways, I'll show you all this because, that would be a good thing to use for farming. You'd never have to till the ground again. But anyways, I'll just show you the video. And the tweet's been deleted. I really hate that every time I click on a tweet, it's deleted by the point of the stream. I'm sorry about that, y'all. But there's nothing much I can do about the tweets being deleted. I hate that as much as y'all. Even more, probably. Anyways, we can see that a Russian T-80 BVM was captured somewhere in the the Ukrainian countryside. The location is unknown, but it appears to be in perfect condition and running order, and it may have just run out of gas. So I'll show you all the video.
Доброго дня, ми з України.
Вот они, це вони, завойовники, прийшли на нашу землю. Вони кидають свою техніку та вйовують. Так буде з кожним. Ми відстоїмо нашу землю. Слава Україні! Героям слава!
Героям слава! Отак от наші козаки виганяють загарбників, танки кидають, Збройні сили України дають справжню відсіч ворогу, техніка спалена. Кинули цілий Урал з боєприпасами до градів. Правильно, ми їх зарядимо в наші гради. І на
So as you can see, it was an intact T-80 BVM. I don't know why they're being abandoned in such good condition. It's insane. But, there's an answer to that. I said I don't know why, but there's clearly an answer to that. Is that the logistics have fallen apart and they just can't supply these tanks with fuel. So why keep the tank crews there when they are not even being fed and the tank doesn't have gas? So they just abandon the tanks. And also, we have one more thing. We've seen that the Russians are hiding ammo inside of Russian ambulances. The location of this video is unknown, and I'm not really sure if the ammo was placed there after the video or not, because we don't have any information to back that up. But going off of the video itself, it appears that the Russians are trying to violate the rules of war by transporting ammunition inside of a vehicle that's marked as a medical vehicle. Anyways, I'll just show you the video. It speaks for itself.
Дорогі українці, шановні земляки, ворог прийшов на нашу землю подло, коварно, ховаючись за...
I'd also love to mention, real quick, I know that I'm talking about some serious stuff, but this guy has, like, the perfect code. I wish I could find that code in real life. But anyways, back to the video.
Дивіться, ось я вам показую дежурний врач.
Чуєш?
Дежурний фельдшер.
Чуєш, це тут у нас наші.
І все остальне з пов'язками лікарів, фельдшерів, санітарів.
So I'll skip forward to the part where they show the ammunition inside the back of the ambulance.
Зараз я вам покажу, з чим вони хочуть нас накормити. Оце вони їдять, дивіться. Це вони їдять солодощі, але нас хочуть накормити оцими всіми снарядами.
And so as you can see, the ambulances are now carrying ammunition. So I just want everyone to know that it's a flagrant violation of the rules of war, but nonetheless, it appears that they're doing it anyways. And so we're about to start moving on into the area of Kharkiv, but I'm going to answer some more questions from the chat. We've got, let's see, $1 million US. Oh, good. Yeah, that's a clarification of the bounty. Yeah, it was offered in US dollars. They are afraid to approach due to anti-tank weapons and they aren't installed. Oh, we've already answered that. We should all contribute to the bounty. Yeah, I mean, if it was a public fund, we could probably get up to $10 million and have the entire world vying for him. His oligarchs are against him, some of them. Yeah, I've gotten some information that some of them left the country, but I've never gotten that confirmed. So I can't really confirm or deny if all the oligarchs have left the country, but according to one source, they have. What's your opinion on these videos of soldiers calling family and friends back in Russia, and couldn't this cause them to be tried for high treason under Russia's criminal code, Chapter 29, Article 275? Oh man, that's a really specific question, because I don't know about Russia's criminal code, because I'm not a Russian attorney, sadly. I wish I could tell you a little bit more information about that, but I don't really know enough about it to tell you. So you might want to research that for yourself, and if you can come back with any information to the stream about what will happen to them, that would be really that would be interesting to me. I'd love to hear about that, because I don't know what would happen to them if they call their family members back in Russia from Ukraine. I don't really know. Let's see, the nuclear plant is actually in Enerhodar. Only 4 of the reactors are currently online. The others shut down prior to invasion. Okay, so we do have some information that some of them were shut down. We don't know if the fires around one of the active ones or not, but the odds are it probably is, because most of the reactors are active. Enforcer, turn off the picture on screen. I can see the whole screen? What? Like... I don't know what you're talking about. Obviously went for maximum casualties. Yes, the Russians don't really care about casualties. They believe that civilians are acceptable casualties. And I know of one instance where the Spetsnaz tried to clear a theater, and like the theater or something like that was being held hostage. I don't know the exact story. This is just kind of me trying to summarize something I heard years ago. But there was a lot of civilians in the theater, and they were being held hostage by terrorists. So the Spetsnaz blew a hole into the wall. Well, no, sorry, I'm getting the sequence of events wrong. They pumped gas into the room, and they didn't know that the amount of gas they were pumping in was going to be toxic. So they killed like several dozen people by pumping in the gas, and then they blew a hole in the wall, which killed dozens of others. And in the end, they killed hundreds of civilians, killed all the terrorists, but they killed most of the people they were trying to rescue in the first place, and then they just marked them all up as acceptable casualties. That's just how Russia operates. It's a really screwed up way to operate in the modern world, considering that military tactics have usually gotten so refined that they don't have to do things like that, but nonetheless, the Russians just do, and I believe it's laziness on the part of the military. Anyways, moving on. Hello, friends. Please support Ukraine. My family is stuck on Hostomel for this last 7 days. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Also, I do have links down below in the comments where you can go and support causes for Ukraine. You can go and donate money if you would like. I got the links from a friend, and they're vetted because Reddit mods went over them and made sure that they were safe. So if you do want to donate, there are links in the description below to do so. Let's see. Such a shame to target the civilian infrastructure. So brutal. It's very brutal. Oh, my YouTube was glitched. My bad, fellas. Okay, I was wondering what was happening. I was like, what? I was like, everything's running normally for my stream. I don't know what that'd be about. Please call your governors, ask for help. If you're talking about in the United States, call your representatives, your congressmen, your governors. Try and go all the way up the ladder as far as you can. Try and let everyone know that you believe that there should be more cooperation on the Americans' part to help out the Ukrainians. They have leveled whole villages. I've seen videos of that. Usually they're like suburbs of larger cities, like in Mariupol. If you want to check out the Day 7 map, there are pictures of leveled neighborhoods. But it's just so messed up. I mean, like, they're literally leveling people's entire lives. And when this war is over, regardless who wins, the Russians or the Ukrainians, these people have to return to where they came from. And they're going to return to a place that's been entirely destroyed. And if the Russians win, which I don't think they will, I'm just saying this is a hypothetical because it could go either way, but at this point, I believe that the Russians will probably lose this defensive war because the Ukrainians are, this offensive war because the Ukrainians are so determined. But if they win, they're not going to help out these people. They're going to be living in squalor for the rest of their lives with everything destroyed around them. And if the Ukrainians win, they're going to rely a lot on the West helping them out with pretty much direct aid, like a Marshall Plan kind of thing that the United States did at the beginning of the 50s to try and rebuild their country, because it'll be very hard for them to do that themselves because most of their economy will probably be in shambles because it's been destroyed in the war. So that being said, I do believe that's a heinous thing that the Russians have done. New Jersey governor actually called me back after email and we spoke. Please push for no-fly zone or at least service to air defense provided to Ukrainians. Yeah, I'd have to agree to that. If everyone could do that, if everyone could call their representatives and their congressmen and so on, it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter what party they are, they're in charge right now and there's nothing that's going to change that. Call them up and let's get something done. And call anyone up, call everyone up, and tell them you want a no-fly zone established over Ukraine or you want something done. You want more done than what's being done. While what we're doing is decent, I mean, like, we've already approved several $1 billion in aid to Ukraine, which is a huge step in the right direction. We still need to try and provide as much as we can. And so if we can eke out a little bit extra, it's entirely worth it. City warfare is hard. Any city warfare leads to complete destruction. Syria, Iraq, Bosnia, and such. Yes, it does. Usually, like Grozny, we can show Grozny as an example of Russian tactics in the city. It's very tough for them, and it's just because they plan everything so poorly for the most part. I can't believe they actually hit a nuclear power plant. That was unexpected. It really is unexpected because you would think that they would have some kind of discretion about how they used artillery around a nuclear power plant, but it appears that the Russians just don't care. They're just going to do whatever, and whatever consequences come out of it, they just don't really care at all, and that's just insane at this point. I don't know what's even in the Russians' heads anymore. They just think, no matter what, even if we have to radiate half this country to win this war at this point, we must, because we've been made such a fool of by the Ukrainians. The lack of respect for life explains a lot about the Russian situation for so many years. It does, and it also explains how they treat their civilians so poorly when they're out protesting and they just arrest them and throw them around like rag dolls. Yo, dude, do you know all this? You military. I'm not military. Most of this is speculation, but anyone with common sense can generally make the inferences I make, and I usually just report on the videos that I have seen with locations. Because you don't have to be military to report on this stuff. You get on Fox News and CNN, and none of those people are from the military, and yet they're reporting on it. And also on top of that, if I ever give my opinion, it is entirely speculation, and if I don't make that disclaimer, it is speculation entirely on my part, and it's not really backed up with any evidence if it's my opinion. So I'm just letting y'all know that in advance. I heard the convoy had a ton of tires popped. What the hell? Oh, I've heard about that too. Okay, there's an interesting story to that. And the gist of the story is that the Russians have been buying Chinese tires because they're cheaper, and so it works better for their budgeting. But the problem is that the Chinese tires are low quality and they wear out a lot quicker. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that may be contributing to what you've been hearing, if that's true as well. That may be two things that are linked together. Let's see. or just like a news enthusiast? Thanks for the info. Oh yeah, I'm pretty much a news enthusiast. I have a friend over there in Ukraine that I knew very well. He came to school in America, and we became friends. And I've tried to talk to him a bit. It's been hard, you know, because life's busy and you can't talk to everyone all the time. But when this war kicked off, I wanted to make sure that he was all right, and so I started these streams hoping that he would get on and he may get some information that would help him out. He was actually in the area of Kiev and left safely, so that was very good for him on his part. So, you know, that being said, that's really why these little news broadcasts started. So, anyways, moving on. If the propaganda is spun correctly, this could be used as an opportunity to create a no-fly zone and escalate. I don't really know what you are meaning by any of that, so we'll skip that one, but Ukrainians just need Patriot air defense to keep air at least contested. It's currently contested at the moment. The Russians have not been able to declare air supremacy over Ukraine. Although we see more aircraft active by the Russians in the past few days over video footage, I'm still told that it is being contested by the Ukrainian Air Force as well as the ground air anti-air that the Ukrainians control. And so, that being said, the Russians still don't have air supremacy, but Patriot missile systems, Patriot air defense systems would help that to a great degree. Tires coming off in the mud. Oh, well, that would be a thing that may happen. I've never had a tire come off in the mud in my experience, but maybe that's something that they're running into. Let's see, there's no chance for a no-fly zone. Maybe. I mean, like, you know, I could see everyone saying that's out of the question in, you know, official government circles. Let's see. No, Ryan, he's not military. He just does a lot of due diligence. Well, thank you for the backup. Russian general killed by Ukraine sniper. Yes, I covered that a little bit earlier. Let me get his name exactly again, just in case if anyone's new to the stream. Major General Andrei Sukhovnetsky was killed today by a Ukrainian sharpshooter. It's practically been confirmed at this point, although the Russian government hasn't come out and confirmed it themselves. His friends have come out and given their condolences to his sudden death. And the Ukrainian and Russian news outlets are starting to report on that, so it's practically true at this point. From the live feed from the nuclear power plant, the RU sent a mechanized infantry company supported by the BMP-1s and 2s, BTR-80s as well. Lots of fighting in the plant, supposedly. I didn't see a lot of that. I saw the fighting near the administrative building on one security camera, but I didn't see anything else. Let's see, he spends all day going over the open source reporting, also a student in history. That's true. Yes, that was a very good response. Thank you, Drew, by the way. Or Stream Enforcer, because we're trying to make all of the mods enforcers now to be my enforcers, since I am the enforcer. But anyways, moving beyond the branding thing, that's true. I'm actually a history major in college, so one of my focuses pretty much in life, although I'm going into law school, is to kind of focus on history, and so I usually try and back up what I'm saying with historical context more so than modern examples. That sometimes drives people crazy because they're like, it's not the modern world, but there's a lot you can learn from history that will tell you how modern tactics will unfold. Like this battle plan here very much resembles what Russia tried to do in the Winter War with a whole bunch of different major offensives with different logistical lines. And it was very hard to support, and they ended up taking a huge amount of casualties and got nothing out of it, really. So that's really being reflected down here in Ukraine in the modern day. And so I kind of draw the similarities in between the Winter War and Ukraine a decent bit, and I also draw the political ideals that have led to this war as very similar to what the Germans said to invade Poland in World War II. So that being said, I'm going to move on and answer a few more, and then we'll finally move on to Kharkiv. World's largest aircraft went to the airport in the sky. Yes, it did. It's fortunately, it was not a person who was killed, but it was a legend in aviation history that was destroyed, and so I do feel pretty bad about that. NATO already providing weapons to kill tanks. Yes, the javelins. How's it different if they provide Patriots to shoot planes down? We don't need USA troops on the ground, just weapons that can make a difference. That's a good question. I don't know why they haven't done anything like that at this point. We'll get to the whole situation with the aircraft that the EU had promised but not delivered on in a bit. And we'll answer maybe two more. Because Patriot missile batteries can be suppressed via sea mission where manpads cannot. Oh, well, that's a very good response to the question. I did not know that as well. My father and brother-in-law both work at Antonov Airport. Luckily, it wasn't their shift on the day of the attack on the 24th. Wow, you must actually be Ukrainian or something because you have a lot of family around the Hostomel area and the Antonov Airport. So I wish you and your family the best of luck. I hope y'all come out of this just fine and none of y'all get hurt. And make sure to tell them if you can to be careful because there's a lot going on around Hostomel still. So anyways, we'll finally move on to the news around Kharkiv. We've seen that there was a prisoner exchange. There's the source for that. You can find it on the Discord map, but I won't go over it. The Ukrainians and the Russians have conducted their first prisoner exchange in the war. They, of course, just exchange prisoners, and it's pretty much as simple as that. Meanwhile, near the area of Belgorod, we've seen more Russian forces heading to Kharkiv. As seen in this video here, they're moving even more in. It looks like these are also logistical trucks as well. So that's something to think about. Although these will probably run out of gas and they'll just park them in a field in the middle of nowhere and never use them again. But, that's just speculation on my part. I don't really know what will happen to these, trucks in this convoy. But anyways.
Не пускают, видите, машины.
So, moving back on. Now we'll get to the area of Kharkiv. There's been a little bit of news that came out of Kharkiv today. There hasn't been as much fighting as there has been in the first few days because the Russians seem to be holding back and just trying to wear the defenders down with artillery. But we do have another picture of another Russian captured T-80 BVM. We think this was in the Kharkiv area. I believe this is in fact the same video that was up in... Oh, yeah, I remember. At the beginning, I thought this was Kharkiv, but then it actually came out that the location was somewhere in the woods near Sumi, I believe, so that changed. So we'll get rid of that one. Anyways, we've seen that artillery has ravaged Kharkiv, as in these films here. Actually, yeah, it is a film. I'm just going to show you all this, the whole 2 minutes and 14 seconds of it, because the destruction has been dire. It almost looks like Stalingrad now.
Вот она, предстоятся война. Да. Хотелось бы такого никогда в жизни не увидеть. Ну, буду надеяться, что выберусь. Иначе уже и не придется. Ну что ж. Это, конечно, нет. Вот такие вот красоты. Ой, блядь. Вот такие вот. Вот такой вот наш народный мир. Вот такой вот наш порядок. Красота. Цивилизация. Вот он. Живем. Радуемся гостям. Встречаем с хреном и солью и байрактарами. Вот такие вот дела. Нравится ли это нам? Нравится это лично мне. Место, где я постоянно хожу на стрижку. Превратилось в места, в которых были первые свидания, пьянки с друзьями, воспоминания. Места, в которых практически родился заново, работал. Практически всю свою, жизнь, сознательную и адекватную. Ну, что ж, такие дела.
The damage has been very extensive to Kharkiv. They've been coming under artillery fire for practically days, almost a week at this point, since the Russians pretty much arrived at Kharkiv on the first day of the war. And so the damage is getting very bad. In fact, if you look at pictures of Stalingrad in World War II, it's getting near that point where it looks a lot like the damage that Stalingrad suffered in World War II. Anyways, moving on, we can see some footage of shelling in Kharkiv. I'll just show you that footage, rather self-explanatory. It was captured on some kind of security camera. And so it's I wish I could really add comment to that, but that's really just become a normal daily thing in Kharkiv at this point. In terms of the footage I bring out every day, is that another MLRS attack hits the city, and it just hits an indiscriminate area filled with civilians and just people trying to run their normal daily activities that they must do, even during war. And it's just become a normal sight now. It's a terrible thing to see that it's become such a normal sight in the city of Kharkiv, but nonetheless, it is what it is, I guess, at this point. Although it's terrible and people ought to start doing something about it around the world in more ways than they already have. Another thing I'd like to say is that I really feel bad about the city of Kharkiv because this is kind of drawing in on what I do in my free time. But before I started doing these streams, I watch a lot of Bald and Bankrupt, if y'all know that channel. He's a great channel. He's got around 3 million subscribers, and he travels almost exclusively through Belarus, Ukraine, and like the back areas of Russia, and he shows them in the light of how normal people in Ukraine see him. And Kharkiv was a pretty city, and it had very nice people in it from all the videos I saw, and I hate that Kharkiv is having to go through this, because it's a sad thing to see the human side of it in another person's video, and then see all of the war side of things that are now happening these days in these videos. It's just very bad. It leaves me with a bad feeling, even with the Ukrainians doing what they should, defending their cities. It's sad to see this happen to them. I hope that they rebuild back as good as it was before once this war is over, and I hope that they don't have their I hope the Ukrainians don't have their goodness shattered by this war. They're a very strong people, so I feel like they won't. But you know, nonetheless, I'm just hoping for that. Anyways, we'll see some more aftermath of the attacks in Kharkiv. I'll just show you all the video.
Вот, заячка, тебе и ночь. Уебали нас, ебать. Двойной артушечкой, блядь. Пизда побила всех пацанов, ебать. Ёбаный в рот, нахуй, ночечка, блядь. Вот пацаки, блядь. Накрыла, наебурила, нахуй. Ебать, еле вытянулись, нахуй, пиздец.
And so the damage is pretty severe as usual. It appears that there has been a lot of fighting once again from the videos I've been seeing and have come out, but I'll try and get you some more information as the Russians begin another offensive into the besieged city of Kharkiv. As of current information, I was told that Kharkiv was surrounded, and a lot of people have been saying that Kharkiv is already lost, but Kharkiv is not lost at the moment. The Ukrainians still control the city, and so until the last Ukrainian soldier surrenders or dies in the city of Kharkiv, on this map, Kharkiv will be declared a Ukrainian city still within Ukrainian control. Also, I've seen some more reports today that the Russians actually have not encircled Kharkiv, but they're doing some kind of pincer maneuver further out, and they haven't actually completed it yet. But I'm not really sure about that, so at the moment I'm going to keep with this map here, showing that this red filled-in area is the area the Russians control around the city. So before I move on to the southern front, because I usually do most of this in one fell swoop, I'll answer some more questions, if possible, and see what everyone has to say. Might be the oil tanks. Yeah, everyone is providing weapons to shoot aircraft down, and many volunteers have stepped up. Yes, there have been about 16,000 volunteers in the 1st Foreign Legion that have entered the country today, and I'll try and get to that news in a little bit when we start covering some of the more international news sides of things that I've found today. I heard that about that Russian general. Is it true? Yes, he was killed. He was killed by a Ukrainian sharpshooter. It's practically been confirmed at this point, but the Russian officials, the Russian government, has not confirmed his death yet, but it's pretty much definite at this point. Yes, his funeral in Russia Saturday, they confirmed. Yes, let's go. They got the Russian major general. Now, that's a big thing. They'll put someone more incompetent in charge, probably, that has very little to no experience, and this guy had just very little experience. Now, Major General will be promoted that has no experience, and the war will probably even go worse for the Russians in terms of casualties. Let's see, the difference is who's pulling the trigger. A no-fly zone takes NATO pilots and force so direct involvement. The anti-tank and anti-airship mount weapons are being used by Ukrainians. Alright, that's kind of like an in-chat discussion, so I don't really know how I could weigh in on it. The general has been killed. Good news! That's great news. This video is in Hostabel, my hometown, not Irpin. Huh. Well, the video marked it around Irpin, and Irpin and Hostabel are kind of within close proximity to each other. I mean, like, they're, by American terms, this is all within, like, one suburb. And I don't want to put everything into American terms when I'm marking stuff by location. I don't know which video you're talking about, but if it's in, Irpin, it's not that far from a hospital. So I'm sorry that it is a little bit off. I'll try and figure out if I can get some even more vetting as to the precise locations. But then again, most of these marks on the map aren't in the specific spots. They're just in the general area where it happened according to the information I got. So it's not like a perfect map, but it's showing you like the approximate locations that these things are happening in. So moving on to the next questions. Did Haiti provide weapons and war aircrafts to Ukraine? I do not know. I haven't heard anything about that. So if you could give me any information on that, if you have any information on it, I would love to hear it. Mother-in-law works in one of those pharmacies. Interesting. If you would like to join the Discord, I would like you to clarify which video that was, and so I can change it on the map and maybe republish the map later on after the stream. I think Ukraine has stopped accepting POWs. I don't really know about that. Usually that's a bad thing to do, because if you're not accepting POWs and the Russians surrender, the only recourse you have then is to execute them. And that means that Ukrainians who are captured, which of course there are Ukrainians being captured, we don't know how many, although the number is probably small, that would lead the Russians to execute them. So it wouldn't really be a good thing, if you see what I'm saying. Russian forces have gone insane. They're shooting at a nuclear power plant. They have. I mean, I can't believe they're really doing that. Poland offered 50 fighter jets and MiG-29s, I assume. Probably. I don't really know anything about that, and we'll get to the info about the plane shipments soon. It's the Russian army that's surrounded by pissed-off Ukrainian patriots. That's true, and I hope they get at the Russians as well. This is just a wave of cannon fodder by the Russians. As soon as they reach Kiev and get set up, they will fly in their well-rested and well-trained troops. Everyone keeps talking about these well-trained and well-rested and trained troops, but the thing is that the Department of Defense, according to their satellite images, have been able to say that the Russians have deployed 90% of their ground forces to Ukraine, and they're currently involved in the fighting. 90% of the Russian ground forces are in Ukraine right now. There are no more well-rested, well-trained troops for them to call upon. They are all there. Okay, because you got to think about this. 90% of their troops are tied up here, and the remaining 10% have to maintain all of the bases across Russia, because you just can't close those things down. You have to keep people there to keep them open. And so, and on top of that, I have to dispel something, because a lot of people think that the Russian army, like the army itself, which is called the Russian ground forces now, is composed of about 1 million people. And let me just do this real quick. I can't get any sources from the Russian Ministry of Defense, because that website's apparently been taken down, although I've been on it before. But we'll look at the Wikipedia source for how many troops are in the Russian ground forces, and the grand total is 280,000. So if you have 220,000 soldiers, or around 240 to 50,000 soldiers involved in the war in Ukraine right now, in ground forces alone, that's around 90% of the forces. So they don't have anything else to come at Ukraine with, and so there's really there's no way anymore that anyone can say wait until they bring in the best and the brightest, and then the war will really change it to Russia's favor, because they've already thrown those people in there, and now they're all sitting in a 40-mile long convoy, clicking their heels together and waiting for some gas and some food, because now they've lost like 30 pounds just sitting around all day. So yeah, there will be no more best and brightest. I'm not a military expert, but the information proves to show that the Russian army is entirely tied up in Ukraine right now. There's nothing more they can throw at that problem. And it's a good thing too that they can't throw anything at that problem. I would like to see a source for that. Oh, that's a chat conversation. We'll leave that alone. It's true concerning the general, he's dead, and it's also true about the Foreign Legion sending in 17,000 people. Yes, it is. I actually covered that, so we're going to move on. How many fighter jets Haiti gave to Ukraine? I don't know. Everyone's talking about Haiti, but I'll try and get some answers to that if that's true. It's all over the news here in the United States. Has been hit and it's on fire. It's an outbuilding, but it can cause problems with the cooling system, which Chernobyl had. Well, as long as they lift the rods out of the reactor, that should fix the problem. Because usually that's how they stop a nuclear reactor from working, because it's not any sort of magical like chemistry force. It's just the reactor rods react. That's why it's called a reactor. They react to some sort of other element that's in another rod, it creates a lot of heat, and this heat boils water into steam. That's like the basic principle of energy generation at all, is that you're heating up something to boil water to make steam to spin a big turbine, and then that produces electricity. So it's not really like it's some sort of like magic system going on. I'm sure there's a very simple way they can probably just stop that from happening. But I'm not a nuclear expert. That's all speculation on my part. They took over a nuclear plant and shelling it. Yes, we've heard about that. Russia calling up reinforcements from Pacific area. Where though? I mean, like what? 5,000 extra people or something? I mean, like, you know, that's a decent amount of BTGs, but you know, I mean, like that's not really going to be a lot of people. They can't call on anything anymore, you know. So, even though they are calling up people, you know, that sounds great, but it's like, you know, if they're calling up Steiner and his counteroffensive, you know, there's like no one left in Steiner's counteroffensive. So, you know, I mean, like, it won't really matter much. You know, they can add like an extra 2,000 people. It's not really going to change the situation for them. Oh, sorry, I don't really cover American politics. You see, because the Ukraine war, you know, I'm just going to say this. Regardless whether who would have been in charge right now, no matter how the election went in 2020, the guy who's in charge now is going to be in charge through the entirety of this war. And so saying that someone else could have done a better job is entirely speculation. And you know, I've heard a lot of stuff, and I'm going to kind of address this and I guess get political for a quick second. And a lot of people have been saying that Trump would have fixed the situation, and this didn't happen under Trump because he was a strong leader. But I have to say this. This would have happened whether Trump or Biden would have been in charge right now, because here's why. Ukraine tried to join NATO just over the past few months. That's what kicked all of this off. That event right there. And so it doesn't matter who would have been in charge. This would have happened either way, because Ukraine, by trying to join NATO, escalated tensions in between Russia and Ukraine, and that's what led to this invasion. And nothing would have changed that hardly at all, because you can have a strong guy or something and say Ukraine will join NATO, and then that just means that not only is Ukraine going to be in this war, but NATO will be in this war as well. So the war would have happened either way. I believe that this war was inevitable as soon as Ukraine was starting to request seriously to join NATO. It would have happened either way. So getting into the political area, that's what would have happened. So no matter who would have been in charge, no one would have done better. We saw that 16,000 mercs join the fight. That's true. There's a foreign legion that entered the country today, 16,000 strong. They announcing that the radiation is rising at the nuclear power plant. You know what? I'm going to pull that up real quick, because that's the most pressing thing. Ukraine nuclear power plant radiation. Oh man, I'm butchering that. Radiation levels. Let's see what Reuters has to say about this. No signs of elevated radiation. This was, let's see, 16 minutes ago. And it says no elevated radiation, intense firefighting in area around the plant. Russian troops advance stalled outside of Kiev. Refugees exceeding 1 million. President says the defense lines holding strong, and they are. So at the moment, just 17 minutes ago, we'll go to CNN and try and verify that as well. Let's see, Friday after shelling in the area by Russian forces, Ukrainian authorities said radiation levels at the plant appear normal. Okay, wait a minute, hang on. This happened Friday. Today is... Okay, well maybe it's... I think it's already Friday. Yeah, it is Friday over there at night. But the radiation levels 13 minutes ago are remaining normal. So I believe that wherever you got that from, it may not be true, but maybe you've gotten a more recent news source that was like 2 minutes ago or so, and I'm reading something 13 minutes old, so the situation may have changed. I feel like Putin will kill everyone just to get his land back. There's nothing about this land that's his for anyone to even say it's his land. This is Ukrainian land, 100%. But I do feel like he will kill everyone in his way to just try and achieve his objectives. He will not be made a fool. He's made that pretty clear at this point. Let's see. That makes no sense. Why would they lose tens of millions of dollars in gear? Well, not just tens of millions, it's probably billions at this point in gear, and thousands of people to test the defense, and it's not trash gear they are losing. That's very true, and that's why I don't understand why people... I think it's because everyone watches a lot of movies, and so they see movies where they always throw like the weakest people at the problem first, and then they all get killed, and they're like, haha, you haven't seen like half of my strength, and then they throw like Godzilla at them or something. That's not how real life works. Usually you send in your best units first, well, along with some green units, so that way they can get some experience, because you're not trying to get all of your people killed and lose a lot of equipment. You're trying to win a war, and so you usually want the best people for the job. You know, that'd be like saying, oh, you know, the Americans wanted to kill Osama bin Laden, so they sent in some people straight out of Fort Benning, Georgia. They haven't even been assigned an MOS yet. They just gave them some M4s, dropped them at Osama bin Laden's compound, and threw them at the problem to just test out the defenses of Osama bin Laden's compound, and then they sent in SEAL Team 6. You know, you see how what I'm saying? It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you apply that logic to anything else. And it doesn't really make any sense in terms of trying to save resources, because it will waste resources if you're just throwing inexperienced green people at something. And on top of that, we've already gone over what percentage of the Russian ground forces are there right now. So, you know, I'm going to just move on from that. President of the United States and the President of Ukraine are talking on the phone. At this minute, this hour, U.S. forces may be sent in to stop what they're doing and secure the rest of the nuclear power sites. I have not heard anything about that, and if that's true, that's crazy. I don't know what will happen because of that. That will be direct U.S. involvement in Ukraine. So I'd have to get some more information on that as morning comes tomorrow. But that would be crazy if that's actually what's happening. So moving on. Putin probably gave his soldiers iodine pills and told them it would protect them when they blow up a nuclear reactor. It won't, but Putin doesn't care anything about any life but his own. That's a really true assessment right there. So yeah, I would agree with that entirely. So now we're going to move on to the area around Izium, and we're going to start covering the southern front all the way, and then we'll start covering the 2 international points I've found over day 8. But at Izium today, there was 3 dead in a missile attack. There is just nothing left but a solemn picture of the building that was hit that led to the deaths of these 3 innocent civilians. But sadly, they all passed in the missile explosion. Very sad and very unfortunate. Hopefully that sort of stuff doesn't happen too much in that area, because as far as my evidence has gone, these people in this area in between Kharkiv and Donetsk and Luhansk really haven't been hit by much, but now that's starting to change. And speaking of change, the Russian front lines have advanced a little bit in the area around Luhansk. They've moved up to Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. There's been proof of artillery barrages in the city today, as it appears that the Russians are no longer trying to just take the city with arms and then go to bombardments. Now they're going to bombardments first, and then they're going to try and assault the city. So here's the pictures and video of the bombardment. I'll just show it to you.
Все, град прошелся.
See, it's just a glow in the distance from the city.
Лес горит, щедрищево.
That's just hellish. I mean, it's so crazy to think that the city is on fire so bad that it just looks like the sun is setting on the horizon. You know, that would be a hellish thing and a freakish thing to see from your house and know that the war is just that close. Anyways, I'll show you all the other video I have of explosions in Severodonetsk. It's rather severe sounding, but I'll just let y'all listen. As you can hear, it was rather fierce, and I believe that is what led to some of the other stuff we'll probably see tomorrow, to be honest, because I'm sure that there'll be a lot of pictures that come out because of that. Also, we can see here that the Luhansk People's Republic are using captured equipment. Now, I have been seeing captured equipment from that the Ukrainians have abandoned on the Russian side. I haven't been seeing a lot of it, but this is one of the few instances where I have seen that. And I'm not really sure what led the Ukrainians to abandon these vehicles, but they were abandoned, and so I'll just show you all the video. As you can see, they're being repurposed because they're spray painting Z's on them immediately. So that's suggesting some supply issues on the Russian side, maybe a desperation for armor.
Народная милиция ЛНР не восприняла это как угрозу и не добила технику, которая еще может послужить.
Now, I'm kind of at a loss to know why the Ukrainian vehicle has been captured. I don't know, and I'm not even really going to speculate on that because I really have no clue how that one managed to be captured, because I don't know if the Ukrainians having the same supply line issues that the Russians are having. So I can't even say that it's a supply line problem because I don't know of any supply line issues the Ukrainians are currently having. Anyways, we'll move on to the city of Mariupol. We can see that there was a large shopping center on fire today in the center of the city. This appears to be a common Russian tactic in most urban fighting, is to set on fire the large supermarkets of the city they're going into. And I believe that's to try and destroy most of the stores of food that the city has in one fell swoop, because most of it's probably enclosed within these supermarkets. And so they're trying to destroy targets to start starving the defenders out of the city and make them surrender. So moving on from that, we're going to move to the next footage that I have from Mariupol, and I'll just show you that to y'all real quick. The tweet was deleted, of course, but you could see that there was fire within the center of the park. There wasn't a lot of firefights, but it did look like there was a firefight there not long before, and that a decent amount of damage had been caused. And finally, we have an explosion in Mariupol. I'll show you all that real quick. The video is rather abrupt. I don't know what caused the explosion, but it was a rather loud explosion, probably because the lady was very close to it. But I don't know what caused it. It may have been another kind of rocket attack. It wasn't an MLRS attack for sure because the explosion was too large, but it may have been some kind of missile attack. Anyways, moving on further down the coast, near the city of Primorsk, we have seen that there has been another protest against occupation, much like the ones we've seen in Melitopol. I'm very glad that the Ukrainians are not taking this lying down even in the occupied territories, and they're going to try and protest as much as possible against the control of the Russians. So earlier in the stream, for anyone who's new, I already covered the Inner Hodar events, but I will cover those here in a second again. For anyone who's new to the stream and is wondering what's happening with the nuclear reactors, I'll cover all the information we've gotten during stream and on that map, so that way y'all's fears can be abated for a bit, as long as we have some information to say that there is a reasonable deal of caution, but no reason to panic at the moment. So we can see that near the city of Zaporizhia, that the citizens have chased away a tank today. The video speaks for itself. It's a rather strong statement, but I'll let y'all see it. We'll skip forward in the video a little bit. As you can see, the tank turned around and started driving off. With the power of a lot of angry citizens and just standing in the middle of the road, you can actually stop Russian tanks from just advancing down that street. It's really amazing to see that people are brave enough to stand in front of a tank that can mow them all down with a machine gun and just stare it down. and stare it down so well that they intimidate the tankers to turn the tank around and just drive off and try and find another way. So that's something very strong, and I'm glad the Ukrainians have stayed with a strong spirit throughout the entirety of the war. It's a great thing that they have going for them. I think it's very unique to their country at this point. Maybe we'll see that that's different as the years go by and things happen in the future. But for right now, the Ukrainians have the utmost respect from me, and hopefully from y'all as well, because they are very strong people. Meanwhile, at the city of Kherson today, we've seen another Russian convoy destroyed near Kherson. I'll show you all that video.
Відео. Шило ось. Ладно, йду пішком, дивіться, що знаходиться в шило. Туф. Бачите? Ой, Боже, що твориться? Ти бачиш? Капець.
I'll skip this forward a little bit so you can see the vehicles themselves.
Боже. Диви.
But nonetheless, more Russian vehicles have been destroyed around Kherson. Right now, the Russians control the port city of Kherson, but I have been hearing reports from the Ukrainians that they are launching some kind of counteroffensive into the city to try and retake it for, I believe, about the third or fourth time. It's a very important city to the Ukrainians and the Russians, and so fighting has been very tense and very strong around that city. So anyways, moving on, I'm going to show y'all some stuff around Mykolaiv. We'll get to the international news, and then I'll cover the power plant again. So if y'all are waiting for the power plant news, stick around for just a little bit longer, and I'm going to get back to that. So we can see that multiple Tunguskas are burning. I was told that this was around the location of Mykolaiv, but I'll just show you all the video. Regardless where it is, it's a large number of Tunguskas being burned to the ground in one spot. So I'll show that to y'all. I'm guessing they were parked on the side of the road because they ran out of gas like everyone else, and then they just got abandoned. So the Ukrainians just wandered by and burned them all down, so that way they couldn't refuel them and reuse them in the future. So I have two things here. I have a missile, a ship that was hit by a missile, and then I have this dot here. And I don't know if this was in Mykolaiv or Odessa, because I've seen multiple different posts today about this this Ukrainian flagship. But nonetheless, regardless of wherever it was, the Ukrainian flagship was scuttled today at harbor to stop it from being captured and used by the Russians. So here's the picture of that right there. As you can see, it's sunken inside the harbor. It's listed like 30 degrees to one side, and it's unusable. It can probably be refloated after the war due to it being on very shallow water. It'll probably be refloated, but it won't be something that either side will probably try and do during the course of this war. So luckily, it's in that condition, so that way it can be refloated and reused by the Ukrainians when they win this war. So moving on from that, we're finally going to cover this one, which shows that a missile hit a ship near Mykolaiv today. It apparently was a Russian missile hitting some kind of civilian freighter, but nonetheless, I'll just show it to y'all. Once again, an unsolicited attack on a civilian ship. I believe that the rules of war are a little bit different, though, when attacking civilian targets, at sea, because usually ships are considered, I'm not really sure what the exact term for it is, but usually they're carrying supplies to support a war effort, and so they're valid targets, even if they only have civilians on board. So that being said, we're finally going to move on to the two most interesting developments today, which may tell me that this little area here that was blue and is a proposed secondary plan that I said the Russians will probably try and take is probably about to happen soon, because today there was a video of a large landing force sailing off the coast of Ukraine. I'll show you this right here. And then later on in the day, we heard that there were air attacks happening near Odessa, and I'll show you all that video.
Смотри, сука! А ракету не видно. Пиздец! Попали, походу, по складам. Охуеть! Ёбаный в рот.
So this is leading me to believe. Also, there was another bit of information that I can't show y'all because it's not on this map, it's on the Day 7 map. But Lukashenko supposedly rolled out a map that showed the Russian battle plans, and it showed that the Russians did have a plan of capturing Odessa from a naval invasion on that map. And it appears that that may actually be coming to fruition within the next couple of days. Hopefully they won't actually be able to take the city of Odessa or land a beachhead around it. But nonetheless, we'll just have to wait to see what the coming days show. So going from that, I'm finally going to tell everyone who's new to the stream, welcome to the stream if you're new, about the power plant. And everyone who was here earlier, just hang with me and then we'll get to the rest of the news. So civilians have been blockading this power plant for a bit because they've been trying to stop the Russians from getting to it. But nonetheless, their efforts were successful for a while, but they were unsuccessful in the end as they set fire to a pile of tires, supposedly, on the road near the blockades that they had set up with the dump trucks, and they began to retreat towards the power plant, the civilians did. So I'll show you all a bit of this video. It's going to be kind of a quicker recap. But you can see that they're all falling back and getting away from the blockade because the Russians had arrived. We can also see some more footage of that from another perspective, but we're going to skip that and go towards the evening where we saw that the Russians started firing in the direction of the power plant. Here's that video here. The fight was then pushed further back towards the power plant, and we can see that here in this security camera footage of the firefight taking place later on in the night at the administrative building. Then finally, they got close enough to the power plant that they started to fire onto the power plant with artillery, and this led to a fire being caused around one of the reactors, and currently the radiation levels are remaining stable according to the last information we got on this channel, but 4 out of the 6 reactors at this nuclear power plant are still active, so there's a good chance that the fire that has been caused is around one of the active reactors because of just the odds of it. They have a 2 or 3 chance of the fire being at an active reactor. So that being said, we don't have any information at the moment that the situation is getting worse. We have information that it's staying stable. Firefighters have moved to the area and they are extinguishing the fire, but we don't know if any kind of safety perimeter has been established around the power plant that either side will fight in or not. We do not know that information at the moment, but that's what is known at this very moment about the Inner Hodar nuclear power plant and what has happened to it. So that being said, we're going to move on to the last bits of news, and then I'll start answering questions. So we have like 3 bits of news I haven't covered yet, and also one in Zhytomyr. We'll cover the one in Zhytomyr. A cosmetic factory was hit today, and it caught on fire. I'll show you all that video real quick. I don't think anyone was injured. I think most people were not in the building at the time that the missile hit and the fire started. But nonetheless, it's a rather large fire and is inflicting a lot of damage to the building. The building will probably collapse. It's probably already collapsed at this point. We also have some information that Foreign Legion arrived. I've been talking about this throughout the entire stream, but the group of 16,000 volunteers have finally arrived in Ukraine today, and they're making their way to the front. So good on them. I'm glad that so many of them came out and supported this this war. 16,000 of them, and hopefully they can help hold back the Russian onslaught that may be coming if they can ever get their logistical situation put together for once. Also, there's been some sad news about the aircraft being sent by the European Union. Due to some complicated problems, the European Union is no longer saying that they will send planes as like a group effort. Now they're saying it'll be up to each individual country to send the planes themselves if they want to. So, in that sense, the airplane donation has kind of fallen apart, at least on the EU side. But there may be aircraft deliveries from other countries like Romania or other countries that have Russian-type aircraft that the Ukrainian pilots were trained on. And so finally, over in London, we've had the first Ukrainian casualty on British soil today when Mikhail Watford was found hanging from a noose in the garage of his mansion. The news article is there if you want to access the map on Discord and read it. But nonetheless, that's really all the information there was to it, is that he has been killed, and no one knows who killed him at the moment, although most people suspect that it was maybe the Russians. So with that being said, we've covered all the news around the world today involving Ukraine, most of the frontline developments that I've seen, and so I'm going to try and answer as many questions as possible now. So we'll scroll up here. We'll scroll down. Oh man, there's been a lot of chats. Let's see. The Telegraph in the UK have raised a statement of elevated radiation levels posted in the Discord. I'll check that out after the stream. Are Russian troops abandoning their vehicles and giving up? There's a lot of reports of that at the moment. I'm not really sure if that's like a whole wide frontline thing, like the war's just going to end because so many of them are giving up. But there is a decent amount of them giving up and abandoning vehicles, and it appears that the Ukrainians at this point are starting to capture and reuse the vehicles. And it also looks like a few Ukrainian vehicles have been abandoned, and now the Luhansk Republic is starting to reuse them. But it's not to a rate that the Russians are giving up vehicles. I mean, like, they're almost rearming the Ukrainians with the amount of vehicles they're giving up. Considering the tankers are most likely 18 years old who don't even know they're at war with Ukraine. I mean, like, maybe. They may not even know they're at war. They may be thinking they're on a training exercise, and these people who are walking around the city must be really well-paid actors because they're pissed. Considering the Russian oligarchy represents over $100 billion, $25 billion would get someone's attention close to Putin, I would think. Yes, but the Russian oligarchs are only there because of Putin. They're kind of there because they support him. And so if they turn against him, Putin's going to put him down. And so I don't really know what kind of dynamic is going to happen out of that. I don't know if they're going to try and do some backroom stabbing stuff like they did with Caesar, in Rome. But maybe something like that will happen. I don't know. I can't really attest either way. They tried that at the nuclear power plants, eventually got through. I don't know what that's in reference to. That's an in-chat conversation. Not sure how accurately, but says gun ownership is 1 of 10. I don't know what that's about. Saw on TV channel where Russian foreign spokespeople went nearly ballistic when a reporter asked, are Russians targeting civilians or are their gunners incompetent? She said all the videos are fake. You can't fake civilian casualties. People don't just kill civilians for propaganda purposes. It just doesn't. That doesn't happen in war. And a lot of Russian people keep on saying, "Oh, all the captured Russian vehicles, they're actually fake. The Ukrainians have made that up. That's actually their vehicles, and they just made them look Russian." Considering they're in a defensive war, do you really think they're taking that many resources off the front lines to make a fake propaganda video where they destroy Russians? That just doesn't make any sense. So moving on from that, I believe that the Russians are all into propaganda to answer that question, Kim. Let's see. I'm from the UK. Everyone is very anxious about nukes. Everyone in the world's very anxious about nukes right now, so hopefully nothing really happens about that. Where's the bodies? Well, I can't show them on stream. There's a lot of videos of bodies in my Discord because I like to try and show the war for what it is, including the bodies and all. So if you want to join the Discord, that's where a decent amount of the body videos are. He just said it took 3 explosions to take out the tank. Interesting. Thank you for that info. Thanks to the Enforcer and your crew for this excellent coverage. Slava Ukraina. Well, thank you very much. I'm very glad that you enjoy it. And if you want to keep abreast of the news, and you think my news is really good, make sure to subscribe. Also join the Discord because a lot of the time YouTube deletes a lot of my subscribers, and so if you want to make sure that you stay up with these streams, I notify everyone over Discord as well, so that way everyone can keep up to the date with the news as it comes out. So if you want to make sure to keep up with this news that I'm giving, make sure to subscribe and also join the Discord. Where's the Javelin missile? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. The bridge is more important than Kherson. Yes, the bridge is more important than Kherson itself. There were already raised levels from the troop movement through Chernobyl, so let's take it with a grain of salt until we have more sources. Yeah, I can kind of agree with that, but, elevated radiation levels, if the radiation levels subsided from Chernobyl, elevated radiation levels would suggest that something may have happened at Enerdohar, but considering that it only happened just like about 30 minutes to an hour ago, or maybe 2 hours ago, that's a really swift air current for it to have moved all the way from down here where this nuclear sign is, up over Europe, and then over into Sweden and Britain and so on. It's kind of moving a little fast. So I'm not really sure if those reports may be accurate, but that's just my speculation. Let's see. Okay, for every combat soldier, there's at least 10 to 14 soldiers behind them and a logistics supply and medical ammunition that are not direct combat. I mean, like in the U.S. Army, in the U.S. military overall, I believe it's like 1 in 5 roles are combatant roles. So I believe that number is a little too far off, but you know, I don't know. It's different for every army. That might be true for Russia. Does he share the map link? Yes, on the Discord. If you join my Discord, there's a map link that comes out every single day for the course of the war since day 6. So I have a day 6, day 7, and day 8 map right now up on the Discord. So go and check them out if you would like to see this map. I'm also going to probably upload this one to Reddit tomorrow, so that way people can see what I've developed as the war map so far and what information I've got to lead to that. Let's see. Appreciate your translation on these. Yes, I do too, Matthew Flynn. Thank you very much for telling us what some of the videos say. This is embarrassing for Russia. Yes, it is. It's really embarrassing. AP reporting higher levels of radiation. Associated Press? Let's pull it up. Associated Press radiation. And let's see what we get with that. Elevated radiation levels detected at Ukraine nuclear power plant. Oh, well, there's not really a lot to that. Let's just pull up Ukraine power plant on fire. Let's see. What's the newest source of... Okay, AP News. Once again. Russian forces shelled, let's see, anything about raised radiation levels. I just got to find this real quick because this is a very severe development if it is, so just hang with me, everyone, and I'm going to see if I can see if it says raised radiation levels. Okay, nuclear plant spokesman Antrasis told Ukrainian television that shells were falling directly on the facility and it set fire to one of its 6 reactors. That reactor is under renovation and not operating, but there is nuclear fuel inside, he said. Firefighters cannot get near the flames because they're being shot at, he said, and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba tweeted a plea to the Russians to stop the assault and allow fire teams inside. So luckily it's under renovation, so it's not an active reactor. We're not going to have some kind of Chernobyl explosion on our hands, hopefully. So hopefully that quells some fears. That quells a little bit of my fears. And so I'm going to move on to the questions. In fact, I'm sorry to everyone who said stuff in here. But I'm going to scroll down and see what the chat's got to say down here. Let's see. So we've got... what do you think will happen to Ukraine after all this, Enforcer? Well, it depends on who wins or who loses, and if the Ukrainians win, they'll have a pretty long road to rebuild the country, and they'll probably be helped a lot by international, aid by like other countries like the United States and most of Europe, because they'll have a vested interest in trying to make Ukraine their friends, although they're already trying that kind of now, and the Russians haven't done anything to make them friends with them. So that's probably what will happen, but if the Russians win, which is unlikely in my opinion, they'll probably start splitting up the country and make it a puppet zone, a puppet country, kind of like how Belarus is already to Russia, so that way they can have a smaller front line with NATO. Because this area down here is the Carpathian Mountains, so it's practically unusable, and so the actual amount of front line they would share with NATO countries would just be this short strip here, instead of this long strip that would be Ukrainian if Ukraine was to join NATO. So I believe that's what will happen. Blow them up one after the other. Yeah, I can agree with that. Just start with one and end with every single Russian there. 6-to-1 non-combatants to combat personnel. That's probably a solid statistic. The IAEA said Friday that Ukrainian officials believe the increased radiation may have been caused by military activity or vehicles stirring up soil since contaminated from the 1986 incident. Okay, that's interesting. So, pretty much they're saying that it's up in Chernobyl instead of down here at this power plant. And so far, we've gotten news to support that it's not going to be any sort of Chernobyl-like situation, if anything. So that's good to know. I would love to see Putin wiggle his way out of that. If you're talking about the war in general, I mean, like, I would like to see him wiggle his way out of that and still keep in power. I'm not really sure what will happen to him once this war actually falls apart for him, because it's on the verge of it. But we'll see. Let's see, what else do we have? I'm going to answer a few more questions, and then I'm going to end the stream, because it's been 2 hours, I believe, and that's usually the longest these streams will go on for. How does one join a Discord? You create a Discord account, and then you click on the link in the video, well, the stream description below, and it'll take you to my Discord, and it'll add you to it immediately. So all you have to do is click the link. Is the reactor situation controlled? At the moment, from the news we just read, yes. The reactor is currently under control, and it's safe. Although that could change at any moment. Yes, they kicked up a large amount of radiated dirt and debris at Chernobyl. Okay, it's good to know that the radiation's coming from Chernobyl and not an actual active nuclear power plant. Chernobyl issue was due to dust. Okay, everyone's just answering that question. More comments. Let's see. What else do we have? 3,500 Russian casualties. I'd say better to just meet the numbers in the middle. Really, I mean, like, though, why in the world would the Russians have an incentive to report their casualties? At this point, even with it only going on for a week, 580 casualties is really high, and so it's suggesting that while they know and admit that it's high, it isn't as high as it really is. And a lot of the Western countries do agree that the numbers are much higher than what the Russians are reporting, and I'd have to believe that as well. Airbnb to shut operations in Russia and Belarus. Who in the world would get an Airbnb in Russia and Belarus anyways, considering what's going on? Like, there wouldn't even be a market for that. They're probably just shutting that down, honestly, because there will be no market for it now. And so they're just trying to cut losses. That figure is 2.5 days old, and was probably old when reported by Russia. I don't know what that one's talking about. I'm sorry about that. The Russian generals and the oligarchs will kill Putin. Maybe. I mean, I bet you he's pretty scared of that because everyone's saying it and it seems almost like obvious at this point, but maybe. Russia will not give up Crimea even if they are defeated. They will draw that as a red hot line. Yes, they will, because a lot of Russians, well, actually, strategically, Sevastopol is an important port to the Russians because it's the only warm water port they have. And so it's the only port that the Russians can operate the Navy out of all year round. St. Petersburg actually freezes over in the winter, so they can't use it all year round. And so if they didn't have Sevastopol, the Russian Navy could only operate like half of the year, because then St. Petersburg would freeze over and there'd be no way for them to actually dock their ships at a large enough port. I believe that Murmansk can take ships though, but that's so out of the way that I don't believe they'd try and base a lot of the Russian Navy out of Murmansk, except for maybe like submarines or something smaller. But their surface fleet, they probably would not base out of Murmansk. And anyways, that's even further north. Let's see. Let's see. Those labs biohazard is faker than Dr. Phil's degree. What's a biohazard lab? I don't know anything about that. I think that's one of those kind of conspiracy theory things. I'm not into that stuff. It's like, you know, everyone acts like there's like more going on than what meets the eye, and the honest truth is that what you're seeing is exactly what's happening. You know, there's nothing nuanced to this. Life is a very simple thing, and so what you're seeing is usually what's just happening. You know, because have you ever tried and coordinate with other people? You know, like the people who like sell these conspiracy theories, kind of. Have y'all ever tried and coordinate anything with anyone else, like a group of people? Have you ever noticed how difficult it is? I just cannot believe that with how difficult everything is with small groups of people. And I have a great team of mods. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about all my other experiences, because my mods are like blessings from the Lord, and so I thank them all so much for everything they do. But with every other group I've ever been in, when you work with even a small group of people, it's almost impossible to get anything done. And so I don't believe that there's some kind of like secret group in the background pulling all the strings, because to get that done and have all of that behind the scenes and then something else entirely for everyone else would just be too difficult to do. Oh wow, there's a lot of comments. Stream Enforcer, how do you apply for chat moderator, by the way? You join the Discord and you show interest in being a moderator, and at the moment, I have a lot of moderators, but if the channel continues to grow, I will start getting more, and I start pulling out of that pool of moderators, of people who want to be moderators, and so that's kind of how you apply. You just let me know through the server. Quinon story that Putin is a good guy saving the world from the U.S. Biolabs creating COVID Part 2. Absolute insane BS. I have to agree. I'm not really into conspiracy theories a lot. You know, usually what you see is what you get. It's pretty straightforward stuff in the world. Let's see, what else do we have? Stream Enforcer, how do you, let's see. They have a huge fleet in Murmansk. Well, thank you for letting me know. I wasn't really sure about that. So thank you for letting me know. I don't really know how the Russian Navy works. They usually focus on ground forces and air forces because You know, people live on land, so, you know, I kind of like consider it these days more important to focus on land wars than naval wars, because naval wars can almost be fought entirely with missiles now. So it's not really like naval fleets matter in my opinion, but that's just me and that's speculation. I'm not even in the military to really know the importance of naval assets. Aircraft carriers are important and submarines are important, but beyond that, I feel like surface fleets are kind of becoming obsolete. But that's just my opinion, and that's my take on, you know, the modern Navy. Let's see. I was born in Odessa. Dumb idea to try and take it out. Catacombs dating back to World War One. Not even locals have mapped them out. Dang. So it's kind of like the French catacombs. No one even knows where those things stop. Now, you know, that would be a nightmare to catch all the resistance, you know, like cells that would pop up in Odessa, because they could just go in those catacombs and disappear. John Rodriguez said, Russian high-ranking officer killed. Any news? Yes, he was a major general, and his name was Andrei Sukhanetsky, and he has been confirmed killed by a Ukrainian sharpshooter and the Russians now. So it's confirmed he is dead. And so I hope that eases your mind a little bit, John, that they've gotten a major general. He's the highest-ranking guy who's been killed on either side at this point. Oh, wow, a lot more chats. So any word on the mobilized Russian subs off the north coast? They said yesterday that they were going into training operations, you know, with parentheses around that. I don't know what they're doing, but I know that they've set off from port and they're going on quote-unquote training operations. Surprised they haven't sunk any Russian ships. Has the Ukrainian Navy all been sunk? I'm not sure. I can't really talk about the Ukrainian Navy because I never get any information about them. I can get a lot of information about land wars because people can just drive around and film things and you can see it. But with naval stuff, there's not a lot of quick videos to get or information about it, so I can't really attest to anything about either Navy at this point, rather than this landing force. And if you want to see that again, just join the Discord and click on the useful links section, and these maps are under that. And you can just find the Day 8 map and find this link and take a look at all these markers for yourself. Kaliningrad has a warm water port. Really? I didn't know that. From what I read a while ago, they don't. But maybe you're right. I don't know, because I was told a long time ago the whole reason they wanted Sevastopol is because it was a warm water port and they didn't have any. So thank you for that info if that's true. Let's see. Croatians sent weapons as well as volunteers. Good for them. It's always the small Balkan countries that help out their friends for the most part, except for Serbia. I just don't join. How did Ukraine break the siege and where? I'll tell you. Ukraine broke the siege up here near Kiev. They were encircled entirely on the western side from Bucha all the way down to Vasilkiv and to the Dnieper River. But today, on day 7, now it's day 8 over there in Ukraine, but actually no, it's day 8 on this map, but it's day 9 over there right now. The Ukrainians pushed out of the city and pushed in a force from, you know, the other side of the siege, and they met in the middle at Bucha, and they've liberated the town of Bucha from the Russians again, and they've opened up this wide gap in the Russian siege on the western side. And so now they, you know, have a large opening in the western side that they can use to draw in convoys or evacuate citizens. But it gives Kyiv a lot more breathing room than they had just a few, yesterday, according to my information. So that's the siege that was broken. So moving on from that, I'm going to answer maybe 2 more questions, 3 more, and then this will be the end of the stream. Why do you think Russia is not deploying even a third of its air force? UK says it's because it lacks pilots, but I don't believe that. Well, the Russians have a lot of budgeting issues, and most of their pilots probably don't have a sufficient amount of training, or they simply don't have the logistics to field the entire air force at one time, kind of like how the army's going. Like, they have 90% of the army in Ukraine now, like within the borders of Ukraine, and they're stuck because they've run out of supplies. And so it might be the same thing with the Air Force. They might be having trouble getting supplies to them. And so 2 more questions. Our Odessa is going to be hit hard by artillery strikes followed by an amphibious assault. Yes, that's what I said earlier, you know, because with the footage of the airstrikes along with the naval fleet heading that way, it looks like they're getting ready for a naval invasion. And so the last question, Q, Russian high-ranking officer killed. Any news? Yes, he was a special forces general and was apparently sniped. Oh, well, you're just answering a question. Let's see. It would be interesting if we could get a dozen A10s to them right now. That should have been a plan 8 years ago. It really should have. That really should have been a plan. Because well, how many A10s was that again? A dozen A10s. That would be wiping out a 40-mile long convoy, because it's nothing but soft vehicles mostly. From what the satellite pictures are showing, they're almost nothing but trucks and APCs. And an A10 Warthog's gun, while not effective against tanks, that's a common myth. It doesn't bust up modern tanks. It can't. It hardly even busted up M47s during trials, but it can bust up light vehicles real easy. And so I bet you, with all my heart, that if they had a dozen A10s, that 40-mile convoy would probably be halfway destroyed at this point. So with that, I believe I've answered all the questions I would want to tonight. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everyone's questions. Thank you all so much for asking them. Giving me a lot of good questions tonight. There's been a lot of repeated ones, but I'm more than happy to answer them. And so, thank you all so much. I'm about to whip you all over back to that amazing Patriotic video that another YouTube channel has made. Link in the description below to that channel. Make sure to go subscribe to him for making such an amazing patriotic Ukrainian video. And anyways, thank you all so much for watching. And I will see y'all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I stream every single day until the war is over. Thank you very much.
Запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй